Welcome to the Student Success Squad with Sheryl Uehling from Tutoring with Sheryl and Tina McMillan from A-Typical Tutors. Today, we'll be talking about helping kids deal with conflict. Sit back, relax, pull out your notebook, take some notes, and if you're ever having problems, make sure you reach out to a qualified professional, get those questions answered. There's people like Tina and myself here ready to help you. Hi, friends, it's Sheryl from Tutoring with Sheryl and the Tech Coach for Tutors. Today, I'm meeting again with my good friend Tina McMillan from A-Typical Tutors, and our topic today is helping kids deal with conflict. Now, we have a special series that we're running on my YouTube page, and I know that Tina is also sharing this on her YouTube page and her website as well. And we've labeled it the Student Success Squad because we really want your students to be successful, because if they're successful, we know we're doing our jobs, right? And sometimes parenting can be really challenging. And one of those challenges that I personally experienced over the holiday was dealing with child conflict. We had my grandchildren here, and my granddaughter's 4 years old. And sometimes it is just gosh darn hard to make those transitions and to put those toys away and go to bed when everybody else is awake. And so if you think, oh, Sheryl's too old to have children, yeah, my own children are grown, but now my grandchildren are here and I get to see it firsthand. But I also see it with my tutoring students. Sometimes they're dealing with things at school or at home, and we have to kind of talk through some things. And I think all parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, any caregivers really need to understand how to help their children deal with conflict. So today, Tina and I are going to sit down and take you on a little journey and talk about that. Tina, for those people who've maybe just first discovered both of us, let's do a quick introduction. I will start and then I'll have you share. Again, I am a private reading tutor. I help basically reading interventionist. I help my students build their reading skills and their writing skills. I also support them with other things that they are struggling with in school. And I follow that IEP or that plan that the teacher has ready for them to work with. As a matter of fact, I just reached out to one of the teachers today to ask a few questions. So I work hand in hand with those educators. Tina, why don't you go ahead and give us an introduction, and then we'll start our chat.
Awesome. Thanks, Sheryl. Thanks for introducing me. I can't wait to do this video again. I'm really looking forward to it. So yeah, I'm with A-Typical Tutors at my company up here in Canada, Alberta, just outside Calgary, if anyone knows where that is, the Great White North, and literally because we have snow. And been doing this for a few years now, working with kiddos that are neurodivergent, so kiddos with diagnosed with autism, with ADHD, dyslexia, and tutoring them as well, and helping them with any behavioral concerns that they might have, and that might be a hindrance to them learning also. So I can do all of that as well. Yeah.
Great. Wonderful. So let's hop right into it. First of all, I want to make sure that everybody knows that this image about how you're feeling comes from Dr. Nation Education on Teachers Pay Teachers. Make sure that you go and check out her instructional materials. They are great. I found this picture really helpful. And we're going to talk about the first thing that we need to do is help our children identify the way they're feeling. And pictures are a great way to do that. I know that before we started the recording, Tina was talking about zones of regulation. And I still have that up, so I can pull that up if you want to talk through that. But really helping our students and our children understand, what is that emotion that you're feeling? Many times I'm working with my students at the end of the day. I don't know about you, Tina, but they've had a tough day already. And then they're giving me a half hour, 45 minutes, an hour, depending on their schedule and how often they meet with me. And sometimes we just need to take time to talk about their feelings and the way their day went. But as a parent or even a grandparent, we need to really teach our kids to be able to identify their feelings, and not just how they're feeling, but the way their body is reacting to that feeling. Would you like to expand a little bit more, and I'll share those zones of regulation?
Absolutely. Thanks, Sheryl.
Yeah.
I had a situation, I guess not really major, with a student who didn't really know how to identify their emotions that they were feeling. And the only thing they could say was that I just don't feel well. And it took a lot of questions and a lot of probing to find out, to isolate what was making them not feel well, and to figure out it wasn't a physical thing. They weren't sick or anything. It was more of an anxiety. So more of that kind of a based feeling that they just didn't really know how to identify and how to express. So, because that could be the trickiest part, is figuring out, okay, what is it that they just can't identify what they're feeling. So they need to know what that feeling is and be able to label what their feelings are, because we all have so many different feelings. And if you don't know what it is you're feeling, then how can we help you, you know?
Right. Now, I do want to mention that the website that I'm sharing is actually called zonesofregulation.com. And there's a lot of resources here, training, curriculum, research, all of those things. But can you talk a little bit more about the colors? When you're talking with your students, once you've taught them the zones of regulation, do you say, are you feeling blue? Are you feeling yellow? Are you feeling green? Are you feeling red? How do you walk them through that?
Well, you start with explaining what each one represents. So green is kind of where we want to be. That's the ideal goal. And if whatever zone we're actually finding ourselves in, if it's not green, we teach them how to get back to green. And green, what I mean to say is that it's the most calming part, like it was where you feel the most calm, where you're ready to learn, where you're not worrying about anything. You're not feeling sick, which could be a blue zone. You're not feeling worried or frustrated, which could be a yellow zone. You're not feeling overwhelmed or angry, which could be a red zone. And so we figure out how to get from those zones back to the green zone, where you're feeling happy, you're feeling calm, you're feeling relaxed. Because there's no way you can teach anything in those other zones. They just don't really work well, because the emotion will take precedence over that part of their brain to process information.
Right. And I think sometimes as educators, we don't often think, as a regular educator in a classroom, we are so consumed with, I have this much to do today. I know my schedule. I've got this much time. I need to get through it. And then when a child is expressing some sort of an emotion, we usually see them acting out in the classroom, kicking another student's chair, pulling on their hair, throwing something, stomping around the room, getting up and walking around the room while we're trying to teach. And we're like, whoa, what are you doing? And I would love to say that all educators are trained in behavior management and have all the counseling skills, but we're not. We are not trained that way, which I think, maybe if we put a little bit more time into that in our education, that might be really helpful, because I remember being in college and having one course on behavior management, and that was supposed to last me all the way through. And then as I went through furthering my education, I picked up some classes on behavior management because I just needed to understand it better. We love these kids. They're like our own children, but it's just like us waking up and having a bad day. We have to learn how to regulate that. And it does have to be taught. It's not something that children just wake up knowing. So if you're a parent and you're like, oh, my kid has big feelings, they just don't get it, and I don't get it, do some research, and we'll share some resources here at the end of the chat that might be helpful to you. But I think the very first thing that we want to teach our kids is how to calm down. So once they recognize that there's something wrong inside of their body, or they're acting out and their parents are saying, all right, you have 3 chances. Here's your first one. Or, they're counting down, or they're putting them in timeout. How can we teach them how to calm down? So I created a list. Viewers can look at the list, but is there anything here, Tina, that you'd like to kind of pull out and talk a little bit more about?
I definitely like the first one, the deep breathing. I think that helps a lot to calm your entire body by doing something that is as innocuous as that. It doesn't take any space. You can do it right at your desk if you need to. You can do it very discreetly. Like I even, as an example, I do teach my students to do a figure 8 on their palm of their hand, and they can do it under the desk so nobody has to see it, because I know there's peer pressure and you don't want to feel like you're different from everybody else, but you're just having a hard time coping with something in the moment. You could do a figure 8 where you breathe in, do your figure 8, hold your breath for the figure 8, and then you exhale for the figure 8. And it's also tactile. It gets you out of your head. You feel your hand. Your hand has so many receptors to feel for feelings, that kind of a thing, and so many nerves in there. So that kind of draws your attention away from, gets you out of your head and into something outside of your head for a second, and gives you a chance to kind of control your breathing, so then you can kind of start thinking a little more clearly and a little more calmly, and maybe ask for help, because when you're in the moment, you can't always ask for help, and it comes out as kicking someone or throwing something, or drawing attention to yourself that maybe you don't really want.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's interesting that you teach it with the figure eight. I might have to use that ooh, that feels good. I'm doing,
It
doing it on
does.
my
It's
hand.
very relaxing.
But I teach my kids, I call it belly breathing. And I say, breathe in through your nose for 3, hold it for 3, and breathe out for as long as you want. And then try to do that 3 times before you then respond to whatever's happening. But another one that I really teach to, I taught for years and I still teach to my kids, and I don't know if I put it on here. Walk away. Yeah, number 2, walk away. You don't have to be rude about it. You could just say, you know what, I think I'm going to go over here for now. And then you walk away. So it's not like you're stomping away. You're not throwing something. You're just saying, I'm going to choose to go over here right now. I'll be back in a little bit. And you just walk away. And, our classrooms are full of kids with lots of different backgrounds and things that happen to them before they get to school, things that are happening in their homes. We don't know anything about that. So one of the things I would always teach is you can always walk away. You don't have to be rude about it, but you can walk away and come back when you're ready. Now that doesn't work if, and I would have to teach, the social situations where you could walk away. I mean, if we're on a field trip and you're feeling anxious, that's not safe. We don't walk away on a field trip. But if we're in the classroom and you're playing a game with another student, for the last 5 minutes of the day, and you're feeling frustrated because it's loud and the game isn't going your way, you can just say, I think I'm done for now. I'm going to walk away. And the other person is going to have to either continue playing the game on their own or find another friend or whatever. But sometimes it's better to walk away than to scream, shout, kick, punch, throw something. I've seen some big behaviors in my career, and our kids are busy from the time they walk into the school until the time they leave. Even my granddaughter goes to public school, preschool, and she's in class by, I think, 8:15, 8 or 8:15, and they pick her up at between 2:45 and 3. That's a long day for a 4-year-old to be in school, and so we can get those big emotions. Is there anything else on this list that you want to chat about?
No, I think you've covered so many things. I think that's awesome. It gives the kids lots of choices, because not every choice will resonate with every student. They'll probably pick one that they like better than others, and whatever works for them is what's going to work for that situation.
Right. And I think at your house, you can do this too. So we're not just talking about classroom or tutor time. We're talking like if you're at your house and your child is having a meltdown, have a space where they can go. I was a big timeout person when my kids were little. That was what I had been trained in. I'm like, okay, you can go sit in timeout. And I think at first, and I should have looked it up. Was it 1 minute or 2 minutes for however many years they were old? And that's a long time for a little kiddo to sit there. But we had a spot in our house, and there weren't toys there. There were no distractions. It was just a spot in the house. Our older house, we had a stairway that had nothing on it. I would just say, you can sit right here on this step. Mommy's right around the corner. I'm going to check on you. I want you just to sit here and think about what happened. I'll be back and I'll check on you. They got up. I put them back on the stair, and I'd say, okay, our timer starts all over again. You need to sit here. Mommy will be back, and then we're going to talk about what happened. And so that's how I kind of got my kids to calm down. But I do like the idea of a quiet corner, maybe where you have some pillows or something where they can sit and just maybe you've got some books or something. You can sit and read a book right now. I will be back and I'll check on you. So they have some time to kind of think about what happened, or count to 10. Or in schools, a lot of times our autistic students will go for their sensory walk. They'll go to their sensory room or whatever to calm down. Just that movement or touching things is really important for them. So find out what works for your child and use that.
Yeah, I even implemented, just to go back to a quiet corner. I even picked up, just on my own time, those little kids tents.
Oh, yes.
Put a beanbag chair in there, a bunch of sensory tools that worked for my student, and we were able to fit it in the classroom, even though it was quite small. But that was a place where she would feel safe, and when she was feeling overwhelmed, she can go in there and just kind of be in her own little space, and then gather herself together, and then come back out when she was ready. And that could be even used in the home as well.
Great idea. I mean, you could make a tent out of a table and throw a blanket over it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we used to do, right? At least my family did. Okay, so one of the strategies as your child gets older, and I mean, even by the time they're 3 or 4, if you've taught them some feelings, they can probably express some of this. Even if they just say, I feel sad when this happens. Maybe they can't add the because, but as they get older, they can add the because. And let's talk about what these I statements are. This is a way of dealing with conflict, like maybe with someone else. Okay. So they're maybe playing a game and it doesn't go well for them. And they're feeling frustrated because the other person's always changing the rules. So, because it happens, you can say, I feel angry when the rules are changed. Now, I didn't say you changed the rules. I said when the rules are changed because it confuses me or I don't think it's fair. Okay. So I didn't put any blame on the other kid. I didn't say, I feel angry when you change the rules because, it confuses me. I just said, I feel angry when the rules are changed because I become confused and it's upsetting to me. And so it's a way of talking through a situation with another student. The other student could say, I feel angry when the rules aren't followed because we have them for a reason to make the game go smoothly. So they both got to talk. So maybe the other person's perceiving that the rules are changing when the other student is just implementing the rules that they've already predetermined. So you get this conversation going, and that's something that has to be taught. But what a great way to take the time to teach your child this skill before they need it. Because let's think about how many times you work with another person, either at school as a child or as an adult in your working situations where maybe you have a feeling and you need to express it. We don't always want to do the you. We just want to identify what is it that was upsetting you, and then you're able to express that. Have you used the I statements with any of your students or had any experience with that?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And this is a life skill, honestly, because we as a species, we're humans. We're going to be encountering humans every day of our life, I'm afraid. Even if we work from home, we still have to, work with them online like we're doing right now. So so it's best, if you can totally identify your feeling as opposed to assigning blame to somebody, because nobody likes to be blamed for anything. If you start doing that, we all know from experience, the conversation is done. It's not gonna end well.
Yes.
So the more you can just be, I don't want to say rational, but in a way it is being more rational and kind of removing yourself from your feeling and just identifying it so that you can deal with that rather than, focusing on the person and maybe what in your mind, what they've done to you. Do you know what I mean? But
right.
Like you can only control what you do. You can't control someone else. That's ultimately what it comes down to as well.
That is right. And before we push the go button, I was talking about how my mom would always tell me, you can choose to have a good day or a bad day. And it really does come down to, instead of thinking everybody's coming at you for a reason, you can think, how am I going to respond if this happens? And you can do some role playing, which I think is one of the things that we're going to come up to. So let's go ahead and go through this. Did I have that? I think I have the role playing over here. We'll get to that in just a minute. But there are some pretty specific steps that you can take, but I tried to limit it to just 4 so that our viewers could maybe remember what the steps were. Go ahead and take a screenshot of this, print it out if you need to. But the first thing we want to do is calm down. So we already showed you some of those strategies. Maybe I should have probably said, identify that there's a problem. Maybe 1 and 2 should be reversed. I'm not sure. But if you're feeling a certain way, your hands are clenching, your teeth are going together, you're getting wiggly in your chair, you're feeling agitated, you need to calm yourself down. And then sometimes we need to identify that problem. And again, before we started recording, I gave an example. I'll give that example, and then maybe you can give another example, Tina, of what something small and what something big is, so that the viewers can identify or understand what we're talking about. So you might be a student or a child at home, and you put your shoe on and there's a rock in it, and you kind of maybe ignore it for a little bit, but then pretty soon it's starting to hurt you, and you're like, and the parents are like, what's going on? Oh, it hurts. I'm like, well, what's wrong? What's going on? There's something in my shoe. Okay, well, that's a small problem, right? We can take the shoe off. We can dump the rock out into the trash or outside. We can put your shoe on and our day can continue. But for a student who has sensory overload, that could be a really big problem. Like they do not, that would like really upset them. So it could be a big problem to them, but for most people it is small. But teaching them that that's small and it's not like somebody stole your shoes and now you don't have any shoes, that's a big problem. What if you only have one pair of shoes to wear? So understanding the difference between small and big would be really important. Can you think of something else outside of this little rock in the shoe?
Oh, absolutely. What I teach too is in terms of what is a small problem. Well, typically a small problem is something that the student can fix on their own. Let's say their pencil broke while they're doing a test, and it's an anxiety type of situation. They only have so much time to finish the test. What can they do? Well, do they have an extra pencil in their desk? Can they borrow one from a friend? Can they ask the teacher for another one? It's not the end of the world. It's not a big problem. It's something they can solve. And then we give them the tools as to how to solve that problem. And sometimes if you take it to the extreme, a big problem could be something like weather, something we can't control. So I tend to teach them the small problem is something you can control or you can get help to control. Big problem, something we can't control and we just have to deal with, I'm afraid. It just,
Yeah.
that's what life is.
Yeah. And I think, our students who are on, the neurodivergent scale, depending on where they're at, sometimes that's really hard. I mean, I remember being in school, and unless I told the student that there was going to be a fire drill or something and really talked about, don't forget your headphones. It's going to happen at 2:00 this afternoon. Remember, we're going to walk out the door, and really pre-taught those skills. It wasn't a small problem. It was a huge problem. Almost a trauma to them. So really knowing your own child and knowing how they're going to respond to certain things, and again, pre-teaching that, and we'll get to that in just a minute, it's going to be kind of important. Okay, number 3, try a problem-solving strategy. You can talk it out with the other person that you're having a conflict with. And I think it's really uncomfortable when we're having a conflict and we have to talk it out. People are uncomfortable with conflict. But we're going to have it no matter what. But if we're a child, we can do something as simple as rock, paper, scissors. Maybe there was, we were going to be in the line, or maybe it was our turn and we didn't get our turn. Or they can use that I statement. So, something simple like rock, paper, scissors to quickly determine the outcome of something, or really using that I statement if it's something that's really emotional to you and you want to talk more about it. I think that would be a really important thing to teach our kids. Would you like to add anything to the problem-solving strategies?
Yeah, I think we mentioned it before. Maybe this would be a good spot to add in role playing, just to kind of give the child practice. And if this happens, these are some options that you can do, so that it kind of plants the seed, so that when they're in that moment, they can maybe hopefully remember, maybe a little bit of muscle memory that, oh yeah, we did this, we acted this out, and then we tried this, and that seemed to work. You know what I mean? It gives them another way of looking at another perspective of looking at the problem. So it's not, oh no, this is the end of the world. It's like, oh, well, we practiced this. So I know I have a chance. I can figure this out. I can solve this.
Yeah, I agree with you. Now, we were also talking about that apology, to apologize. And that apology, we want to make it as sincere as we can. Sometimes the kids just aren't ready to apologize, but we do want them to make an apology. So something as simple as, I am sorry that I hit you. That was wrong. Is, even if it's not like heartfelt, it's still important to teach our children that they do need to apologize. And then on the receiving end, accepting the apology. Thank you. I appreciate that. That's all I have to say. You don't have to say anything else. But the other person maybe needs to apologize as well. I'm sorry I made you angry enough that you did that. Just talking through that, I think, is really important. It's a sign of respect to apologize. And in order for our kids to be respectful, we have to be respectful to them and show respectful behaviors. If we're always at home speaking negatively and showing poor behaviors, your child is going to be doing that as well. So please keep that in mind, that your kids are watching you. Did you want to add anything about the apology?
Sure. It also falls under the perspective taking piece in terms of apologizing. You're kind of putting yourself in the other person's position and their perspective, in the way that, well, what if that happened to you? What if you switch places and that person did something to you? Would you want them to apologize for that because of how it made you feel? Yeah, you kind of would. So maybe switch shoes, and then you can say, oh, well, I'm sorry that I did that and that's what happened. And the person, oh, thank you. I'm so glad you recognize how I was feeling. A child's not going to say this. This is an adult talking, but but yeah, definitely. Just perspective taking and seeing it from the other person's point of view is huge in so many different situations, not just in making an apology, but lots of different situations.
Yes, exactly. And then, also teaching how to make that apology is really important. Now, we need to teach healthy conflict because your child is going to have conflict. It's not if they have conflict, it's when they have conflict. And I want you to remember that you are your child's first teacher. You had them at home with you from most people, not all people, because there are situations where you didn't, but most people have the child as a newborn and they're going to go to preschool at maybe 3 or 4. So you have those first 3 years to really kind of teach social expectations. At that point, you're probably just modeling it. But you do need to teach your child these skills before they need them, because if you don't, they're going to really struggle. It's going to be harder. So role playing in advance and teaching those expectations. So let's talk like arrival at school. Okay. You drop your child off. What do? They run down the sidewalk. They run into the doors. They might run to their classroom because they're excited, right? Well, how about teaching them, okay, I want you to be safe. You can walk with them to the door, say, have a great day. I'll see you after school, and say, please walk to your classroom. You set the tone for the day instead of them just like running. Now, do you always have time to do that? No. And after a while, you probably don't need to do that, but we really do need to teach expectations. Here's another example. This is a real example that happened to somebody in my life, and they shared it with me. They went to go pick up a child that is a family member. The child had never been to the library before. Never. They're like, hey, let's go in and get some books. Okay, let's go in and get some books. Does that mean that we're going to take the books home? Does that mean that they're my books? Do I get to keep the books? What does this even look like? They walk in, this building is huge, and the child goes running and screaming because they think it's like a playground. You didn't teach the expectations. Now, it was heartbreaking to hear this story because this person was so excited to take their relative to the library and teach them something new. But in this case, this child had never been to the library. They didn't understand the concept of a library. They just didn't understand it. It seems very foreign to us, but this can actually happen. So if you're going to take your child someplace new that they've never been before, we have the internet now. I would say most people have access to a phone where you can look at some pictures and say, this is what it could look like. It might not look exactly like this. This is what you're going to see. This is how we're going to act. We want to be quiet so that we don't disturb other people. We're going to do something called check out a book. So it means we're going to borrow the book, we're going to read the book, and we're going to return the book when we're done with it. So you set your child up for success. Another example, and then I'll have you share one if you'd like one or two. My granddaughter had to get her first haircut about a year ago. And we were worried that she wasn't going to like the sound of the scissors. That you get that feeling. It's something brand new. So I got online and I found, I think it was a PBS video of a student getting their first haircut. And I said, the person who's cutting your hair is a girl, and we're going to go to her shop. And you're going to sit in a chair just like that. And they're going to use scissors on your hair. And when you're all done, it's going to be shorter. That means they're going to take some of it off, but that's okay because it grows back. We went in, she didn't have any problems with her haircut because she knew exactly what the expectations were in advance. That seems so silly. But instead of having her sitting in the chair screaming and crying, we set her up for success. It's something as simple as that. Okay, Tina, take it over.
I love that. Another thing I've used with my students as well is creating what's called a social story. So it's a story that you can personalize for them. You can go online, you can actually put the child's picture, their names. It's really cool. And it talks about whatever they're feeling, confused or unsure, or it's the first time they're doing it. I even used it with a student who had never been to the dentist before. So we did a social story for him and kind of prepared him for what's going to happen, the sounds they're going to hear, the smells even, did everything, and explained what a dentist is, what they do, and why everyone's wearing a mask and that sort of thing. And it really helped a lot because the first time they went, he just bolted. He's like, nope, I don't want any part of this. I don't know what's going on. It sounds crazy. It sounds like there's somebody in pain. Like, you know what I mean? Who knows what's happening in the next room, right? So it helped a lot. And that just, yeah, role playing and preparing them and giving them an idea what to expect. It's not going to cover everything that could possibly happen, but it's going to help them get in the door, and then you can ask questions, or you can make it into a game. Do you remember we talked, we might see this, or how many of those things did you see? Or I saw that. Did you see that? You know what I mean? You can make it into a game as well.
I love that. That was great. I probably did that with the social stories, I suppose. I mean, setting her up for success like that. So we've got some resources that we've run across. The one in the upper left-hand corner kind of covered up. It's called Parenting with Love and Logic. It's a book that is quite old. I think it's a 1989 or 1990 first edition, but they've updated it. I think they updated it in 2000 or a little bit after that. But I used it in some college coursework, and it was something that really helped me understand consequences. So it's not like, your child left their shoes out. So you're just going to throw the shoes away. No, that's not a logical consequence. Okay, your child left their shoes out. You're going to ask them to pick them up. If they don't pick them up, then maybe they're going to go into a box for a 24-hour period, and they can have them after 24 hours. You're not taking everything away, but you're giving logical consequences for behaviors that maybe are driving you crazy at home. Or it really goes through and outlines some great things. Now, there's probably some controversial things in there that maybe are a little bit outdated, but I think if you're looking for something that's just going to teach you about logical responses, it's a great overview of what a logical consequence would be. And then you can apply it to your own situation. Like the idea of the timeout chair could have come from that book. I don't quite remember where I got that from, but it was something I needed at the time because I had a toddler who was misbehaving and I didn't know what to do. Another book I found, and both those books on the left side are on Amazon. I haven't purchased this book, but it's called The Magic of My Magical Choices. It was so cute. And I love, the author is Becky Cummings, and it's illustrated by, a name I'm going to not be able to say correctly. So I'm just not going to say it. I'll let you guys look at it. Susanna, somebody. Great story. I'm going to choose to be responsible, and then talks about making those good choices today and how that's going to really impact their day. Now, we've got some resources in the middle that I want Tina to talk about.
Oh, thanks. Yes, we talked briefly about the zones of regulation. You might have heard that term and you maybe not know what it is. And just zones of regulation, so self-regulating yourself, identifying your emotions you're feeling, and just trying to get back to how do you make yourself calm again, because you don't want to be in those states of irregulation for too long. It's not good for your body. It's not good for anyone around you. It's not good for anything. Honestly, you want to figure out how to calm yourself. And that's a life skill too. I think we all need, some people need it more than others. I've noticed some adults, I bet, that maybe could benefit from it as well.
Yes, I would agree with you completely. I think it's great that we're sharing this. This is for everybody. It is not just for children. It's for everybody. Tell us about your video. Is anger okay?
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Yes, a while back I made a video called "Is Anger Okay?" And of course it is. We all feel angry, and it's not something I think we should be ashamed of. I think we need to know that it's okay to feel angry, but it's not okay to hurt other people if we feel angry, or necessarily break something that is, that you don't want to break. But there's other ways you can focus that anger. And usually anger, if you ever heard of an anger iceberg, where the tip of the iceberg is the anger. That's what everybody sees. But below the water, which is underneath, that's where all the emotions are that kind of turn into anger, where it's coming from. It could be fear of something. It could be feeling insecure about something. You just could be nervous, or you're feeling anxious. And all we see is the anger part. So it's not usually you're just feeling angry. There's usually a reason beneath it. And then, so getting rid of that, and well, not getting rid of it, but helping the child deal with that anger in a constructive way, so we can get to the root of it and figure out, okay, what's making you feel angry? I feel angry too, and this is what makes me angry. What makes you angry? And it's a great time to share as well. It's a great teaching moment, because we've all felt angry. Like, if I just say two words, road rage. right?
Yes, you're right. We before we push the record button, you also mentioned Julia Cook's books.
Yes. Oh, I love her books. She's got, yeah, my soda pop head, which is great visuals in her books. Is that one's about worrying Wanda, I think it's called, and the other one's my mouth is a volcano. Like she's amazing. Personal space camp. Like I've used almost all of them, and they come with workbooks as well to go along with teaching. Oh, fantastic resource. And even all the ninja books. So there's an anger ninja, there's a worry ninja, there's tons of ninja books, which is I think are great for boys. Awesome. I
Yes.
really like those books.
I'm not overly familiar with the ninja books. I've seen those, but I have met Julia Cook. She's come to our school to speak before. She's from Nebraska. Yeah, she lives very close to me. Actually, I've seen her at the parking lot at the grocery store before. So, I know who Julia Cook is. Yeah.
For me, get her an autograph for me.
Oh, I don't think I could call her up and say that. I'm not that close, but I've seen her. So.
Oh, you're so lucky. I would love to meet her. Oh my gosh.
Okay, well, we'll see if we can't make that work for you. So then we also both found an article that we thought were pretty good for parents. The first one at the top is called The Surprising Secret to Raising a Well-Behaved Kid, and it is on parents.com. And it was short, sweet, and to the point, so that's why I found it. And then another website that I've actually run across before, you found the one on the Child Mind Institute, teaching kids how to deal with conflict. So those are some resources for you. There's tons of resources out there. We want parents to be able to ask for help. One thing that you can do if your child is a school age, if you're really struggling and you don't know what to do, please go in and visit the school counselor, because the school counselors are there to help you. Okay, well, we're going to wrap this up. Anything else that you want to say about our talk about helping kids deal with conflict?
Oh my gosh, there's so much more to say, but we'll be here forever. So, well, I think we've opened the door on a lot of topics and a lot of resources that can be available to parents and teachers and tutors out there, and even students themselves if they're old enough. Definitely, I think we've talked about so many things. We talked about really important points, and like I said, these are life skills that we all need, and sometimes we need a refresher in them.
Yes, exactly. And, again, do not be afraid to ask for help. Do not be afraid to ask for help. It's so important. We want you to like and subscribe and share our content, because we feel like this is really going to help other people. I want to thank you guys for joining. Tina, thanks so much for coming along on the ride. It's so fun to talk to you.
Oh, thank you so much. Thanks, Sheryl. I love talking to you too. This is great. Like minds. We think alike. I love it.
I think we really do. Okay, you guys, make it a great day. And as usual, keep the learning going.